I guess we could just start with how all of this really came to be. I remember I wrote in my book, because I always have a bunch of ideas. So I always have, child, my ideas got ideas, okay? So I always have some ideas. But a lot of times I know that I could get ahead of myself and always trying to do everything. And like, you can't just do everything, you know, even though I may want to do everything, I know that I can't do everything. And I remember it was, I want to say, was it 2016? No, it wasn't 2016, 2018?
It definitely was probably 2019.
2019?
Nope, it was 2018.
Okay. So 2018.
2018.
Okay, 2018 when I started my first podcast, and I was like, I want to do a podcast. And I remember I pulled all the ladies together, and I was like, I said, oh, maybe I can do something like Transform Nation. I want to, because I'm always trying to think about things that I want to do with women, and, you know, just that whole anything with women, anything with transformation. So I did that. And the podcast was like interview style. So it was me interviewing everyone one-on-one, and it was done over the phone. You know, I did like a little conference call number, and then I would call people and interview them, record it, and then put it up on the podcast. So it was actually in a Life Recycle podcast. But I honestly can't even say that I really enjoyed it. Right. So then fast forward, I knew that I wanted to do a podcast again, because I know with having the Empowerment Studio and the work that I do, I know that it's important to be able to give voice to it. And it's important for women to be able to utilize their voice. And I wanted to do it again. And again, I always have a habit of running ahead. So this time I was like, I said, you know what? I don't want to run ahead of God. I was like, I've been there before. I've done that before. Me and all my ideas, me and all my, you know, think I'm being so brilliant and clever about this, whatever. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And so I was like, but what if I did a podcast? I was like, and I don't want to just talk to myself, you know? Right. I was like, I could do a podcast by myself. I was like, I have all of the stuff to do. I was like, but I don't want to do it by myself. I was like, maybe I could do it with April and Brooke. And I was like, well, Tawanda, you need to pray about this before you just come run and jump out there and just putting it out there. So I wrote you guys' name on a piece of paper in my notebook, and I was like, podcast. I think it was like June of 26 or something. I can't remember. It was some day in June, but I have it written in my my book, and it was like podcast with April and Brooke. And I was like, and I just prayed about it, and I said, God, if it's your will, then let it be done. And I just left it at that. Fast forward.
Not even asking either one of us that. Fast forward to me. I was watching one of my soaps at night, and there was a character on there that was actually starting a podcast. And I was like, don't we have that equipment and those features at the Empowerment Studio? We should do that. And I thought about it. I think I called you the next day. I don't think I called you that night. I think I called you the next day. And
you text me.
I text you, right. I text you. And I said, what about a podcast? What does it take to start one? And then I guess our next conversation, I wonder, was our next conversation at the beach when we
went to the beach?
When we went to the beach
but
that
day when you text me, I nearly fell out my seat because I was like, because it was the first time that I prayed and asked God something where I didn't try to manipulate the situation, right? Because we do that too. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, yeah, I'm praying about this.
You let it come to you.
Exactly. Yes. And I just wrote it down and I left it alone because I know enough not to run ahead. Like I'm telling you, I've been there, I've done that before, and I didn't want to do that. And so when you said that, I was like, really, God? Really? Yeah. So we went to the beach and we started.
Yes, and you showed me that. You showed me that in the book, and I was like, I can't even believe it.
Yep. And then I think, matter of fact,
my own business.
Yeah, Brooke was minding her business.
Right.
Because when we were going to the beach, I had I said, well, let's ask Brooke.
Right.
Because I wrote all three of our names down.
That was the crazy part.
And so I said, well, let's ask Brooke. And so then Brooke.
Yeah, so did y'all call me?
Oh, yes. Wait, was we going to the beach? It
was the three of us that were going to the beach, but Brooke had something to do, and it ended up just being me and you. And we did call her when we were on the beach. And she said that she would have. Well, Brooke, I want you to tell your version. I don't want to tell your version, Brooke. So there you go.
So my version was, I know you got to pray about it, but
Yeah, Brooke was like, I got to pray.
No, when you guys had called me and asked me like, hey, something I pray about, and you told me, the whole story about writing our names down, and we all bring different things to the podcast, and just pray about it. Us being together doing a podcast, and I'm like, what? I was a little shocked, and I definitely had to pray about it, and I was like weighing the different things, and I'm like, well, it's so busy, podcast. I don't know nothing about no podcast, and then I started asking the questions: can this glorify God? God, do you want me to do this? Instead of like taking myself out as like the top priority. And I really saw the benefits of this helping people and a way to get certain things out to the community, to women, because we don't have a lot of candid conversations. And so I was like, you know what, God? I think you're okay with this. So I had met up with you guys like a week or something later, and y'all were like, okay, so, tell us. And I was like, well, I don't know. And then y'all was like, oh, see, that's that shady stuff.
Exactly. That's why Raj be calling you Shady Brooke.
That's messed up. Her husband calls you Shady, but I was acting like I wasn't sure, but I knew, I wanted to. And I was like, I'm in.
Yeah.
And we had the biggest laugh.
Yes.
And I'm so glad we decided to do this. Yes.
Yeah, and it was just on from there. And it all started with just, it started with a prayer, just writing it down. It started with obedience. And then here we are. So we are 3 women who just decided to come together, use our voice, bring what we bring to the table, and just learn and grow.